One.
What's going on, YouTube, Facebook, subscribers, viewers of this video? This is Bill Mack here once again with another edition of Raw in Review. This is for April the 10th, 2017. This was a very special themed Raw. As you can see down here at the bottom, it is the Superstar Shakeup. This is where Vince came out last week after WrestleMania and announced that he was going to shake things up a little bit, and that general managers were going to be able to make trades and do whatever. I don't know if this is going to replace the draft or if this is just some moves, but he vowed that the rosters were going to have a little bit of a shakeup, both on Raw and both on SmackDown Live. It was a decent episode to me. Really weren't too many surprises. I was admitting kind of anxious to see who they were going to get and who they were going to switch. I kind of figured the top guys weren't going anywhere, but it was just still kind of interesting to see, which mid to upper card guys were going to go to what shows. I'd seen different scenarios of different ones go of different transactions that potentially could happen, but I really didn't know until watching it. So I did have some intrigue in watching the show. As far as wrestling show, typical Raw, I wasn't too fond of it. I mean, outside of the shakeups and just seeing who's going to go where. And I'd never seen the trades. They never really did trades before, but I was expecting to see Shane or Daniel Bryan from SmackDown there, but it didn't. It just what it is. They just appeared out of nowhere. They appeared and they were just letting you know then that they were there from SmackDown Live and they were in Raw. So that's basically how each transaction happened. There was no big explanation. There was a few of them that they let switch. That they switched without actually showing on TV. They showed earlier up in the day, as you know. Apollo Crews was the first person announced to leave SmackDown Live to go to Raw. That was up in the day. So said it was kind of already started, but that was about the only thing they went ahead and changed. And you've seen quite a few people, such as they announced, I think it was Kalisto is leaving SmackDown. Slater and Rhino, the former SmackDown Tag Team Champions, they were leaving. Just a few more others, and we'll get more into them as we get into tonight's episode. So we're going to go ahead here and start right off. The beginning of Raw starts, and you hear John Cena's music comes out, and the fans start booing and going at it because they're like, "Oh, great, John Cena's going to start out Raw. He must be coming to Raw from SmackDown Live." Well, it's not Cena, folks. It is actually The Miz and Maurice carrying over their John Cena and Nikki Bella gimmick that they took over for SmackDown. They were basically there, and they said that that they were back because Hollywood, quote, didn't want them, and that they decided they were turning over to Raw. And then and fans started cheered them a little bit, and then all of a sudden, Dean Ambrose's music comes out. Dean Ambrose, the Intercontinental Champion from over SmackDown, he comes out and he starts pretending like he thinks that The Miz is John Cena, and he's telling him, he was glad that he beat The Miz and all this, that, and the other, and wished him the best and whatnot. And then the Miz takes and Maurice pulls her hair, the wig off, and she says Maurice is not. It's not really Nikki Bella, it's Maurice. And he takes his hat off and says, "No, it's not John Cena. I'm really the Miz." And then he ends up saying, "Oh, well, that in case." And then he ends up hitting the dirty deeds on Miz and the end it. So that's the beginning of Raw. So we automatically see the Miz and Maurice and the Intercontinental Champions. So now you have the mid card titles on Raw. So that will leave one to kind of speculate on what's going to happen on the next night on SmackDown Live. Well, we see the beginning. It picked up the last week where the New Day were out, and they noticed they had a doll of Kofi Kingston, which if any of you, in case you didn't know, Kofi had an ankle injury. Storyline wise, I think, and had to have surgery. So he calls out, the Revival comes back out, and Dash and Dawson end up and they caught Xavier Woods coming off the top rope, and they put him in the shattered machine. They get the pin. So for 2 weeks in a row, seems like New Day's getting vulnerable now. Must be that they're coming too close to an end if they lose, or could be going over to SmackDown, but they lost to the the debuting, or well, not debuting because they debuted last week, but one of the newest tag teams on Raw by the Revival. So then we come back and we see Kurt Hawkins standing in the ring, and he's like announcing that he's back on Raw, which really is not a big loss anyway, folks, because you know Kurt Hawkins, you know he's no big deal on SmackDown Live, but he announced he's on Raw, and then all of a sudden he starts talking, and you know he wants to be welcomed and whatnot, and wonders where's the welcome wagon at. And then the Big Show's music comes out. Big Show walks down the ring, doesn't smile anything, hits Hawkins with that KO punch of his. Hawkins is not completely out. Big Show turns around, walks out, and goes to the back. So I guess welcome to Raw from the Big Show to Kurt Hawkins. So we just see this match we see this segment in the back where Neville's talking to T.J. Perkins, and he was telling T.J. Perkins trying to he tried to make T.J. Perkins think that Austin Aries was taking his spot, and how he used to be in the cruiserweight champion, and how the tension was taken off of him, how he was irrelevant now, and it caught him to thinking. And then Austin Aries comes up to him, says, "Don't listen to him. He's only trying to brainwash and trying to trick you and make you think this, that, and the other. You know, don't listen to him." And then TJ just kind of gives him a look and he walks off. So this leads us up to the match. We see TJ Perkins, and he ends up defeating Austin Aries. Now you wonder how, but Austin Aries had the match basically in hand, but we see that Neville comes down and causes Aries to be interfered. We see TJ Perkins ends up getting it back in the ring, getting caught in a small package roll up by TJ Perkins. 1, 2, 3. Perkins gets the win off of the distraction from Neville to Aries. Aries is inviting Neville in. We see TJ Perkins come back, and he starts beating and hitting that kick on Aries. And we see that TJ Perkins leaves the ring, gives a look at both of them, and then he walks back up the ramp as Raw goes into break. So we come back and we see Seth Rollins out. Seth Rollins is there, and he's talking about, and he's cutting a babyface promo, which was pretty good. He basically was talking about how he was able to defeat Triple H and Stephanie, and he said, "I didn't just do it, you helped me along the way." And he was thanking the fans for supporting him. And he had a cool Seth Rollins shirt that says Kingslayer on the top of it. And he said that he knew that Stephanie was going to be, while she was going to be out for a while, she was eventually one day going to come back. And he said that he knew he would be Stephanie's public enemy number one. So then he says that, you know, when he said that it would be easy for him to feel like he would be able to pack up and just head to SmackDown Live. That would be the easy thing to do. But he said he wasn't going to do that. He said that wasn't him, and he did that before. He said he won't do that again, and that he's staying on Raw, and that anyone who wants for him to leave, they'll have to come and kick him out. And then all of a sudden, Kurt Angle comes down. Kurt Angle cuts a promo telling him how, he said that, Stephanie, she's gone right now. So, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And he said he knew that he wanted to put on the best possible show for Raw. So Seth Rollins was part of the best show of Raw. So he wanted to keep him. So I thought that was a pretty good segment. And, he said as long as he's the GM, he said Seth Rollins has a place on Raw. So we'll take this quick break, and we'll be right back and conclude it. And we continue on with this after Seth had left. We see that Samoa Joe came back out there, and tried to attack Rollins from behind. This was something that we expect that is going to set up an upcoming feud. As far as we know, Seth Rollins is going to be on Raw. Now, what Samoa Joe is or not, that still remains to be seen. As we see, the second part of the Superstar Shakeup will happen on SmackDown Live. So that's what we're kind of waiting for. But Angle saw that Samoa Joe was out there. He tried to break it up, and he couldn't stop him, and they were going back and forth. And then Rollins ended up hitting a straight side kick on Samoa Joe, sending Joe to the outside. Joe retreated to the back. Seth Rollins stood tall in the ring, and that was basically it for that part. So looks like we may be seeing a Seth Rollins feud versus Samoa Joe, and that'd be a good feud. Look forward to seeing that. That's what I like about when Samoa Joe being on Raw and having these feuds yet, because he's not really had a feud, a real good feud yet, at least in my opinion, so far. So this will be his first legitimate feud. Up next, we see that Nia Jax basically, she had a match against Charlotte, as we see from last week, where Charlotte, remember, they were in a 6-woman tag. It was Charlotte, it was Emma, and it was basically Nia Jax taking on Dana Brooke, Bayley, and Sasha. Dana Brooke, Bayley, Sasha won. We see that Nia Jax, she pushed Emma. Emma got out of the ring. She pushed Charlotte, pushed Nia Jax. Nia Jax didn't take it too well, and she kind of showed Charlotte why she was the monster. And so we see this was a good match back and forth. I mean, Charlotte pretty much held her own against Nia Jax, considering Nia Jax's size. I felt like this was a good match that she held her own. There were some good spots with her doing that moonsault off the top rope, and Nia was still showing her strength and throwing Charlotte around some, and Charlotte just worked her over. This was actually a good match, and the ending came when Nia Jax hit the avalanche, and then she hit that Samoan drop. 1, 2, 3, she pins Charlotte, and Nia Jax gets the win. So we see that Nia Jax looks like she's going to be feuding with Charlotte upcoming, and this will be a good feud for her now. Now that they're, I imagine seeing either Charlotte or Sasha or one of those go over to the SmackDown brand, but I'll get into that after, maybe after we get done with the results from the Raw side of things. Good thing was we seen Finn Balor come back. Finn Balor, remember, this first one-on-one matchup he's had since he came back from his injury from being out for about 7 months or so. It was a decent match for him. He was taking on Jinder Mahal, which is however you can really want to call that matchup. He ends up hitting the coup de grace on Jinder Mahal. He gets the 1, 2, 3. Great chance of seeing Finn Balor, and just glad to see him back on the Raw roster, at least for the time being. And then when he's standing to the ring, all of a sudden, Bray Wyatt's theme comes up. I'm like, what? Bray Wyatt? Because I wasn't expecting Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt was not a name that I heard out from any of the sites or anybody mentioned as potentially going over to SmackDown, to Raw from SmackDown. He wasn't one of them. But he starts talking about him, and so I was really in shock of that, but it was just amazing to me how he basically was telling Finn that he had been watching him. And so I thought, like, okay, it's cool that we see maybe, the darkness from Bray, the darkness from Finn Balor, the Demon King, and how cool that was going to be. I'm like, okay, that's great. That's what I like seeing. So this going to look, I would love to see this feud. Bray said that Raw was his new home, and then he didn't intend on coming along. That he still has his championship rematch against Orton, his House of Horror match. So this begs difference. So you're going to have a SmackDown Live championship at the upcoming Raw exclusive only pay-per-view Payback, which is something you don't see, is something that's unheard of, which remains to be seen. So Good promo by Bray. Glad to see Bray on the Raw roster. Hopefully he gets a good push. I don't know. I love seeing him on SmackDown because to me SmackDown gives the superstars better opportunities at being champion and whatnot. I just always felt like they did. I thought it was pretty good. So we see earlier in the night, Sami Zayn actually at the beginning after the first segment of the show, Sami was talking to Kurt about Raw. And The Miz comes in. The Miz says, you know, you better earn my respect and respect me. And I'm this, that, and the other. And then it's basically setting up a match for Raw. So we see Sami Zayn taking on The Miz. The Miz played a good thing as a good heel, as he always does. And Maurice, it kind of went back and forth, and it showed a point to where Maurice got interjected herself into the matchup a time or two. Even when Sami went to go dive through the ropes to get Miz, Maurice stepped in the way. He caught himself in the ropes and got back in the ring where he wasn't going to jump on her because she's female, of course. And he ends up, she tries grabbing his leg and holding him at another point in the match near to the end of the matchup to keep him to give the Miz a little bit of a time to kind of collect himself where he can maybe turn on Sami Zayn and take advantage of the situation. So we see basically Miz sets up for the skull crushing finale, and Sami Zayn ends up getting another roll-up pin. So here we see another roll-up pin. I don't get these roll-up pins. I know it's so to be like surprises, but to me it never really understand what's going on. Anyway, folks, we come up to this point of the night. We see this is very interesting. They had been announcing the whole night that Cole was going to get down and sit down with Roman and talk to him about his match against The Undertaker. Well, it was going to be in the back, so we weren't going to see Roman come out front, and that's kind of a good idea since what happened last week. So we see he starts to get into the interview with Roman. All of a sudden, Braun Strowman, folks, comes out of nowhere, and I mean he brutalized Roman Reigns. He power slammed him in the crates. He ran this big blue case into him and left him laying there. The EMTs came out there and they were trying to put him on the stretcher. Braun takes the stretcher, he comes and he shoves it off the side of the lone dot with Roman Reigns still strapped onto it. So then we see another shot where Roman is down there. They're trying to get help to come in and get him. So we see that Braun still ain't done. Once they get him strapped, get him up and into the ambulance, Braun picks the side of the ambulance up and turns it over with Roman inside of it. Cool spot. Hadn't seen a cool spot like that, but it just showed you the dominance of Braun Strowman. And then they finally showed where they actually get him out of that ambulance, put him in a regular ambulance, and they take him on to the medical facility. Excuse me, make sure I one of WWE's banned words, or medical facility. And they said he had some cracked ribs and, a few other things. And we'll see what this sets up. I guess him making a comeback. And because he's got so much nuclear heat on himself, as they've been saying, that he maybe needed a few weeks off to kind of die that down, let that die down some. So we'll see how that goes. So we end up seeing the Hardys. And I'll call them Hardys, not Hardy Boys, because they were Hardy Boys when they were younger. They're men now. So the Hardys tag team with Cesaro, Sheamus to take on the Shining Stars in the club. And they showed the Drifter Eli Sampson come out on stage during his entrance. And I guess that's his debut, I guess you call it. Eli Sampson, the Drifter from NXT. He's now on Raw. And we see the end of it shows where the Hardys go through this matchup with them when they hit the Twist of Fate and a Swanton Bomb on Epico, and they pick up the victory. So we see them at the end. The Hardys and Cesaro and Sheamus shake hands, and because these two are they'll be going at it for the tag team titles at the show. So we'll get ready to wind this bad boy down here and give you my final thoughts in just when we come back and finish this up. So hold on tight. So Sasha Banks is shown coming to the ring, and she's there to introduce her good friend Bayley. And Bayley comes out. She walks into WrestleMania champion, walks out as women's Raw heavyweight women's champion. So she said she thanked the fans first of all for believing in her, and Sasha said she was out there and she want to congratulate on Bailey on her WrestleMania victory. She said, and you had your WrestleMania moment, but now your moment's over. And it kind of Bailey looked at her and she says she was about ready to tell Bailey that she wanted to come out and challenge her for the Raw Women's Championship. But then out of nowhere, Alexa Bliss's music hits. So Alexa Bliss will be moving over to the red brand as well. She's a former two-time SmackDown Women's Champion. She come in and she said that she came to Raw to do what she does best, and she's basically going to win and dominate. And then all of a sudden, while she's in the midst of her promo, Mickie James comes out. So Mickie James is another one leaving the blue brand for the red brand. So Mickie James comes out, and she also is coming out there. And then she said that she was Alexa's nightmare no matter where she went. And all of a sudden, Nia Jax just comes out of nowhere and plows Mickie James from behind into the ground. And then Bliss ended up shoving Sasha into Nia Jax, and Nia Jax took care of Sasha. And then she hit Bailey with the Samoan drop, and she's the one that holds Bailey's championship up and poses with it. And she ends up staring down Alexa Bliss as Alexa Bliss is off to the side as Nia Jax leaves. So looks like we're going to have some good feuds with the women's side of things on the Raw side. And what we've seen up segment earlier in the show when after Dean Ambrose had appeared, Kevin Owens said that Dean Ambrose should know his place. He said he knows he's the real legitimate number one champion on the show. And they're going to bring that point since Brock will probably be out the whole month, the rest of the month, which there you go, WWE Universe. That's your Universal Champion. You complain about Goldberg being a part-time, but then you got a man that ain't, it's going to be out another probably a month with the pay-per-view. So that's who the WWE wants, and that's Raw. Crap on Goldberg, but you look, Brock's just going to do what he did before. You end up going to have a champion. It ain't going to fight none. So you ask for it, you want it, you cheer him, go right ahead. I mean, that's all well and good, but he's not going to be any different than Goldberg is with his matchups. Except I know Goldberg doesn't really wrestle on, but I don't want to get in all that discussion either. So we leads us to the matchup, one-on-one, champion versus champion, both on the same brand at least for tonight. Kevin Owens, the U.S. champion, which he said he wants to be the face of the United States, and against Dean Ambrose, the Intercontinental champion. Match is pretty good. Owens tries to hit the dirty deeds on Ambrose. Ambrose ends up reversing it, and he ends up hitting Kevin Owens with the dirty deeds of his own. So, and then we see after the matchup, Jericho appears at the top of the ramp. He starts slowly making his way down, and Dean gave that case like, well, sound involved me. Rolls right out of the ring. Jericho comes in, and the moment he comes in, he ends up hitting the code breaker on Kevin Owens. So we see this matchup going further along as Kevin Owens at Payback will take on Jericho to end the show. That's how the show ended up. And I found out later on, Raw exclusive or Raw Fallout, Byron Saxton has now been sent over as an announcer from Raw to SmackDown. So David Otunga will be now announcer on Monday Night Raw. So I feel bad for Saxton because he's going to have to deal with JBL. So here's my thoughts to give you a few tidbits here. One, I thought that it was, I hate to see Ambrose, Miz, and Maurice and Bray Wyatt leave SmackDown. I feel like SmackDown's a better show. Raw's always overloaded with talent, and the creative writers have to make do, but they do a good job making storylines compelling on the SmackDown brand. I felt like these guys benefited way so much from being on the blue brand that they're not overshadowed like the Raw superstars are, so I hope the best for them in this situation. Bray Wyatt seems that he took the place of AJ Styles. It had been speculated AJ Styles was going to make the jump from the blue brand there, which would have crushed me because I'm a big AJ Styles fan. I'd rather for AJ to stay on SmackDown, but Bray ends up taking his place going over to Raw. I feel that, as far as tonight, the second part of the Superstar Shakeup, SmackDown Live, it's been speculated that Sasha Banks and Charlotte both may go from the female Raw to the female Blue in SmackDown. They mentioned too that Kevin Owens, which I figured he would go over since and balance it out with championships. As far as the males on the singles competitor side, Kevin Owens going over. There's a possibility that New Day, since New Day lost again, that they would be going over and usually being a top tier tag team in the SmackDown division, and Jinder Mahal being in the low card division, leaving SmackDown or Raw and going to SmackDown. So these are some just speculations that Dave Meltzer had posted. Shout out to Dave Meltzer for the information here, but that's what's happening in the Shakeout. I just hope SmackDown gets a fair deal of it, and hopefully there's some surprises I didn't. From what I'm reading, other than that, I hope there will be. I noticed SmackDown has its work cut out for them, but it can prevail. It can be better. I'm a SmackDown guy. So hope you've enjoyed the video, folks. I know it may have been a little bit longer with the extended of the Superstar Shakeup, but I wanted to get to you folks as I enjoy doing my wrestling videos, and I should be back up with the SmackDown Live video, just SmackDown Live review in just as soon as it comes out. So I hope everyone takes care. If you like a video, drop a like on it and subscribe to this channel as I try to put out as much content as I can. Hope you all enjoyed the video. And once again, this is Bill Mack as part of Pro Wrestling Unleashed. And take it easy.